Okay, welcome back to the United Pubcast, the podcast of the Man United Supporters Club here in Australia for the first pubcast of 2022. Larry, Happy New Year. And I'm just thinking, are you the kind of person, New Year, New Me and all that stuff, or is it just a different date on the calendar for you?
I'm definitely not a New Year, New Me sort of guy, Tom, but Happy New Year to you and to all our listeners for sure. Look, I thought we've had a successful 2021 in terms of this channel and the growth in the community that we've seen here. And that's something that I will hope that in this year we just continue to build on. So if that makes me a New Year, New Me sort of guy, then sure, let's use it in that way.
We'll definitely hope. Let's hope Man United have got sort of a positive outlook and they can be New Year, New Me, because a few things probably do need to change to see Man United reach some type of success for the remaining 5-6 months of the season. But time will tell. But it is January, Larry, so the transfer window is officially open. I saw a couple of hours ago. It's been an absolute disgrace that United haven't signed anyone yet because the window is open. But I'm just thinking your general thoughts on the January transfer window before we get into the Wolves preview type thing, because we're all talking about signing players. We want this player. We need this player. We need to strengthen here. We need to strengthen there. The situation Man United find ourselves in is very much almost a selling position. We've got so many of those players who their future looks elsewhere, whether that be big names, Cavani and Pogba, where it might not be a January thing, it might be later on. But then the short-term things in terms of Anthony Martial, Jesse Lingard, etc. So now that January is upon us and things can actually happen now, just wait up for me.
Yeah, it's a tricky one with United. I think you're right. I think it'll be one where you'll see more exits than people coming in, but it's much needed. United do need to clear some wages, much needed wages, off their wage book. And I think the squad, if I'm being entirely honest, does look bloated. I recall when we did sign Cristiano Ronaldo, we all sort of assumed Dan James would be the one to fall, but even you look at it now, it still looks a little bit bloated, doesn't it? I mean, now with the system changing to potentially a two-striker system, now I think Rangnick already in his time at United has shown he's willing to be more fluid. I think we saw more of a 4-2-4 or a traditional, if you like, 4-4-2 to what we're used to against Burnley with two traditional wide players as opposed to inverted number 10. So I guess it is a tricky one. But look, I think with Anthony Martial in that case, look, it's been done at nauseum. We know that that's the sort of player who, yes, the Frenchman should look to leave United, whether you think that's right or wrong. I think it will be one where United do some business. I personally don't like the January transfer window, Tom. I find it quite disruptive. And look, it's not one where you're not going to get the cream of the crop of best players. It's one where you basically use it in need of an emergency. If you think back to two January windows ago, we signed Bruno Fernandes. If you recall at the time, Paul Pogba was injured. United had no creative outlet whatsoever. So that was a signing that was very much needed. Now you could argue, do United sit in that position when we're talking about the midfield now? So it'll be an interesting month for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, the one name I do want to touch on, I'll just get to in terms of Edison Cavani, just a few guys in the chat. George, good to see you here, mate. As always, Ashby, good mate of mine. Happy New Year to you. And Matt saying hi. And yeah, good to see Matt the other day, obviously with the Supporters Club at Scruffy Murphy's to watch United beat Burnley. And just on that United match against Burnley, well, obviously after the match, I was watching all the Scott McTominay highlights and the Ronaldo goal and Jadon Sancho's goal, something that did go under the radar a little bit. And I missed not till probably 24 hours after the game. A clip started circulating around social media that clap in the crowd, and Edison Cavani seemed to be out there a little bit longer, almost like a lap of honour type thing, and the old-fashioned sort of wave into the crowd type thing. Put two and two together, it almost did look somewhat like a goodbye. So I'm just thinking in this January situation, now it does look, I can't see from the club's point of view them getting rid of Edison Cavani, but I think in these situations, a lot of it does come down to the player and the player's choice. They'll go to Cavani and say, look, we want to keep you, but do you want to go, like, are you going to be happy sitting here and sort of doing what you're doing, or do you want to go elsewhere and be happy, sort of thing? And we also sort of have hypothetical discussions in November and December, but now that it's actually January and things can actually happen, that wave, that sort of the wave into the Stretford end and wave into the East End type thing, it almost looks like, well, something's actually in it now, and there is a real possibility that Edison Cavani could be leaving in the next month.
I don't know. I mean, all the links were with Barcelona. You look, they've just forked out 55 million euros for Ferran Torres from Manchester City. You'd think he'll operate in that central position. They've now been linked with Alvaro Morata, if you believe Fabrizio Romano, who's fairly reliable, must be.
There's also a chance maybe Juan Mata as well to Barcelona, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Our Spaniard might very much be on his way, but you look at it from that perspective. I look at the business Barcelona are doing and the noise coming out of there. I don't think Cavani will leave. It could be very much a case of he was just being passionate. But look, it did very much reek of goodbyes. But I'm just going to stay on the glass half full side of it, Tom, and I'm going to say to you, Edison Cavani will see out the season with Manchester United, I think.
Look, I hope he does stay. If it's his decision, he wants to move on, I wouldn't stand in his way. I think he's been great for United since he's come in. So I think it's one of the ones where you put all the power in his hands. And look, if he does decide to move on, well then, okay, we've got Marcus Rashford, Mason Greenwood. They can get a few extra minutes up front, and it might be better for their career. But at the moment, let's hope he stays. But I think there's a real possibility in a few months, or not in a few months, in a few days, we could be having a discussion that Edison Cavani is no longer a Manchester United striker, and then we'll obviously look into the sort of January.
I'll tell you what, Tom. I think where it does get interesting though is what happens with Martial. We've seen that United have already knocked back a loan offer from Sevilla. So if Sevilla don't come back with improved terms, maybe it is Edison Cavani who in fact leaves and Martial stays. Now, whether that's the right decision or not, that's a debate for another day, or not really much of a debate for me. But I think one of those two players will leave. Between you and I hope it's the Frenchman.
It's where you say you're not a sort of a big fan of the January transfer window, and when you do look at it, it's so disruptive already. You're thinking like whether it's you strengthen your squad or weaken your squad, there's no guarantee either way. Especially in the climate we're currently in terms of COVID, and you don't know who's going to be fit for the weekend. You can put a team selection out, and that could change 6 hours before kickoff type thing. So it is a weird situation we find ourselves in. But moving on to the football, and it is a Wolves preview. Appreciate everyone in the comments. Please remember to like the video if you haven't already. That would be great. And let us know who you think should be playing or shouldn't be playing. But before we get into the United starting 11, there is an opposition, obviously, and Wolves. And look, obviously, Wolves over the last couple of years have seemed a little bit of a bogey team, Larry. There was that about 2-3 years ago. We seemed to play them every second week. And whether it be replays or League Cups or FA Cups, we always had Wolves away at some stage around the corner. But they're a weird situation now because they've obviously changed the manager this season. And they don't have the same aura about them. However, they're one position below United. Now, United aren't at the top of the table type thing, so it's nothing to write home about. But they are in 8th position and United are in 7th. I think there's a bit of a gap in points. I think United might be 5 or 6 points ahead of them, but they are close to United. And I'm just thinking, what do you made of them this season? Because I remember they lost the first 3 games of the season. Obviously, United did beat them in that one of the first games where they should have beaten United, to be honest. Rafael Varane's first game for Manchester United. But just your thoughts on Wolves this year?
Yeah, they're just struggling to score goals. I've watched enough of Wolves this season, and I think they just really struggle to put the ball in the back of the net. They're definitely dangerous. I think Adama Traore, he's the one on our thumb now. He's definitely the danger man in terms of what he
talk about that. And just when you mentioned not scoring goals, and you mentioned Adama Traore, and I had a feeling you want to do that. And I'll just bring the point straight to you. Do you know how many goals Adama Traore scored this season?
1, possibly.
0. So we talk about him as this threat. I always sit back and here I am. I'm saying this now, and he's probably going to go out and score a hat trick now that I've said this. But I never really see him as that threat. I see him as almost that St. Maximum type player where he looks threatening, but at the end of the day, is he really? And at the moment, he scored 0 goals halfway through the season.
He's a phenomenal dribbler. I think what he does do is he does beat players one-on-one. He puts himself in brilliant positions, but he doesn't have end product. And I think that's exactly the point I'm making. I think, is he a dangerous player? Absolutely he is. But if he's going to do anything, it's more likely to create space for another player as opposed to actually scoring with any sort of efficacy himself. And I think that's the problem with them. You look at Wolves, they dominate the ball fairly well. They're quite solid in the midfield. Even when United have versed them in the past, it's always been a good midfield tussle. And I'll even say they've had the better of the moments throughout 90 minutes. But the problem with Wolves is they just can't score goals. And I think that's where they will struggle. Now, United can't keep a clean sheet at the moment. So, lo and behold, I think they might actually be able to find the back of the net in a few days' time. But I think that's where it potentially comes into. It will come down to who's going to score more goals in this game. Because I don't trust our defense. But in saying that, Wolves just simply aren't too dangerous.
Well, Matt here saying, which I kind of agree. And look, I was always a little bit of a fan, not a fan of Dan James, but thought he got a little bit of unfair criticism. He's a faster Dan James. Don't know whether
he's
faster
though. I just think he's more physical. He's better with the ball.
I think he looks faster because obviously got that physical sort of physique around him. He's obviously very powerful, and that is part of pace, being able to go past someone physically. That is, and he just mentions here now, obviously not the case. I wouldn't be going in the January transfer market getting Raul Jimenez, but he brings up the point, Raul Jimenez here. Before we got Edison Cavani, and we're sort of on the lookout for who's going to be new number 9, I was thinking Raul Jimenez was the man, and I still think he's a great striker. Maybe sort of the goals have dried up this season so far, and off the back of that head injury last season, so it's a little bit of a tricky situation to go into. But yeah, I think give him a chance. I think he's a fantastic striker. But we will move on to the United side of things, and we'll get into our sort of starting 11s in a sec. But just the one man who will probably dominate this discussion, and he's obviously in the thumbnail, Bruno Fernandes. Now, he wasn't dropped against Burnley, but there is a case after the Newcastle performance that we could be sitting here and saying that he was going to be dropped anyway, because of while he was good at times, he was Bruno Fernandes at times and lost the ball so much. And I think Ralf Rangnick and Scott McTominay spoke about, I think we set a Premier League record for the season of turnovers against Newcastle. And obviously there's no bigger culprit of turning the ball over than Bruno Fernandes. So we had an improved performance. We sort of still lacked a little bit of control against Burnley, though it was an end-to-end game while it was comfortable in terms of the managers kind of thinking it probably wasn't as in control as he would have liked. So I'm just thinking, okay, Bruno Fernandes is now available. Big player, big personality, obviously a quality player. But after the better performance against Burnley, does Bruno Fernandes actually come back into the team? We've both got him in our starting 11s, but there is a strong case to say don't play him.
I think he does. And I think it's just simply been a case of you're going to need the squad rotation, aren't you? And that's the thing. I think just with the fixture list being so congested at the moment, he's guaranteed to basically get a start. And I feel a bit sorry for Bruno Fernandes. I think the commentary around his performances has been unfair, if I'm being entirely honest. I think to say he's even having a poor season is extreme. Yes, I think he's really struggled to fill into Ralf Rangnick's system. But I think a lot of players have really struggled to fill in. And in fact, before the Burnley game, I think we all would have said, outside of a 30-minute spell against Crystal Palace, it's looked poor. Every player's looked poor under Ralf Rangnick. So I think it's been a little bit unfair. What will be interesting, though, is if you are playing Bruno Fernandes in this system, because with the ball against Burnley, it was very much a 4-2-4 or a 4-4-2.
Everyone says 4-2-4. Even Ralf Rangnick said 4-2-4, and continue your point, but it's 4-4-2 for me. Obviously, when you're attacking, your wide men are further forward. But for me, 4-4-2, but continue.
Sure, I'm going to call it a 4-4-2. I hate calling it a 4-2-4. But yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, where does Bruno fit into that? Does he play as one of the strikers, but perhaps just a little bit deeper? I think if you ask Bruno Fernandes, what's your position, he'll tell you he's a striker, the way he plays. So I would think that's where you deploy him, and I think that's where you get the best out of him. And I think if you can do that, along with a bit of defensive discipline in terms of within the structure, then I think he can be absolutely brilliant. And that's the thing, and that was my major criticism early on with the 4-2-2. If you're going to utilize Bruno Fernandes, don't utilize him to be an outlet in a wide area where he can't utilize his passing ability. Put him in a central position where he can link up with players, pass the ball, score goals. Because yes, when he's not on form, he can be frustrating, but you need that player to have that sort of license to be risky, because when he's on, he wins us football games. It's as simple as that.
Where do you stand? I'll bring up your team in a second, but where do you stand? And we obviously have a very small sample size at the moment. What's Ralf Rangnick been in charge for? 4 games, 5 games type thing? A quite small sample size, so it's hard to read too much into it at the moment. But there's no doubt we have big personalities, and in a couple of weeks' time, you're going to add Paul Pogba to that, and that's another debate. But we have big names there, whether that be David De Gea over Dean Henderson. Now, obviously, his performances have sort of warranted his selection, but obviously Harry Maguire as the captain's a big personality. Ralf Rangnick has been unable to sort of drop him at the moment. Cavani, obviously Ronaldo almost picks himself. We've talked about Rashford's influence in the dressing room, and now he's Bruno Fernandes. Just what have you made of sort of Ralph's sort of impact so far on managing the big personalities in terms of not upsetting players, or has he upset players, etc. type thing, in terms of his management of these big names and leaving them out or selecting them?
I think he's done a brilliant job. And what I like about Ralf is all these murmurs coming out in the media. That tells you he's doing a good job, Tom. Because I think the criticism of Ole, and look, obviously we're not in the dressing room there every day, but it's very clear that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer perhaps played it a little bit safe, try to be friends with the players. And what I think Ralf Rangnick's doing is basically the opposite of that. He's almost very similar to Louis van Gaal in the respect of those are the players, I'm the manager. There has to be a clear, defined split there. But in saying that, I think he's basically challenging the players. He's coming out, he's saying what he wants. He's not afraid to call out a player's mistake, and that's his way of challenging them. He's almost a hybrid between Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, in the sense of I feel he's very honest and very direct in the way Louis was. Very clear in his footballing philosophy, albeit very different styles, but very Mourinho-esque in the sense he'll call out a player, but doesn't go all the way to the end where he's almost insulting the guy and spitting on his family. And I think that's the thing. It's a fine balancing act. I really like it. I think what he's doing is he's finding out or he's tuning out all the poor personalities within the squad. He's basically challenging everyone to say, I don't care what's happened in the past. I don't care if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, or Harry Maguire. If you're not going to get on board with me, you're very much going to see yourself out because he is at the club beyond the 6 months. So I like what he's doing. I think he's showing character. He's being challenged, but overall, you have to say he's doing a good job.
In regards to that comparison between Louis van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, you could almost say he's just very, I don't know, very German-like. He's very efficient. He sort of takes a little bit from everything and just makes it, sort of fine-tunes it kind of thing. But Adam here's saying, evening boys, very late to the party. No worries, Adam. Good to see you and Happy New Year. And we'll just throw up the starting 11 and Larry's starting 11. So you might make it just in time to see if Larry has included Anthony Martial. I'll bring it up. And there is no Martial, Larry. So talk me through your starting 11. Interesting, especially with the Bruno Fernandes selection. You've sort of put him a little bit further forward, obviously almost in a second striker role or partnership with Ronaldo.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have made mention that if you ask Bruno Fernandes, I'd say he's a striker. Look, I think I'm lining this up in the way that you'll see the team sheet under Ralf Rangnick. I'd very much expect Bruno to be tucking into the hole there. But in saying that, I think there'll be times where he will play almost as a second striker. He's a great goal scorer. There's no denying that. The statistics will tell you as much. With the lineup, look, I really would have liked to take Harry Maguire out of the side. I would have loved to put Lindelof there, but he's still got COVID. Eric Bailly's off to the African Cup of Nations, so he's out. So unless you're going to throw Ten and Mengi in there, or you and I in defence, I think it is going to be Harry Maguire. Rafael Varane comes in. Like I said, not many options there. I think Shaw keeps his spot. He was very positive against Burnley. I'd even go as far as to say it's his best performance of the season so far. I don't want to put Fred in there, if I'm being entirely honest, but I'm going to say Fred starts. I can see Adam's comment around Cavani. Look, I'm not going Cavani, and that's purely out of rotation. I think he's played 2 games now within quick succession. I think you'll see him on the bench, but I think Bruno comes in. He plays in that spot. The Rashford one I felt a bit uneasy about. I wanted to go Greenwood, but I think, again, out of rotation, Greenwood has played 2 of the last games. I think Marcus will come back in.
You mentioned you don't want to pick Fred there, and I assume obviously Nemanja Matic had quite a good performance against Burnley and a little bit under the radar. I'm just thinking, we have a discussion around Ronaldo, or can he play 2 games in a week? And the answer is always yes, he can. And Cavani, we always have the debate, and the answer seems to be, well, no, he can't. Even so, when we actually watch him play and he sort of passes the eye test, we think he should be able to. With Nemanja Matic, it's just almost a fact that he doesn't. I'm not sure why, because have we ever actually played him 2 games in a week type thing? It's just a common consensus. No, he doesn't play 2 games in a week. And that very well might be the case. He might not want to do that. The management might not see that as a possibility. But it's not a discussion with Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, obviously, Ronaldo is a different beast. But I'm just thinking, is it a rightful discussion around Nemanja Matic, or should we just be, if he's fit, play him?
I think Matic has unfortunately shown in his time at United, Tom, that when he's playing back-to-back, he just struggles.
And he very well might do, but I just don't know, because it seems to me he never plays 2 games in a row, but because of that argument. But I just think, does he actually play games? Do we have evidence that he physically can't? Do we see a good performance? Then do we see a poor performance if he does play that next game?
Yeah, if you actually can think back to the start of last season. So I remember when we started playing games behind closed doors, Matic was a mainstay of United's squad, and he was playing a lot of football, and that's what caused him to get the new contract. But if you actually think back to the start of last season, he was playing regularly, Matic, and once he started getting a few games back-to-back, he really struggled. And then that's where you saw the McFred sort of come together and be formed as this new burger that we all hate. But I think that's the issue. As much as I love Nemanja Matic, when he comes in like he did against Burnley, brilliant. You see what he adds to the side. But if he keeps playing back-to-back games, he just really struggles. And maybe that's a recovery thing. And we also have to remember Ronaldo, I know he pressed harder in that Crystal Palace game. I think Ronaldo's role has changed. From what I'm seeing out of him, he's not pressing as intensely over the 90 minutes. I think he's very much being protected within that system. And I think with Matic, we also have to remember he's playing in the midfield. No player is going to cover more ground, maybe outside of the fullbacks. Matic is covering much more ground than Cristiano Ronaldo. So I think for that reason alone, it's just difficult for him to play after 3 days.
Well, yeah, no, I completely agree. Adam, he's saying reason for leaving Greenwood out. I think he would start. I'll just move on to my team, and I think you'll probably prefer Greenwood over Marcus Rashford, but I think you're thinking Rashford will come back in. So I have gone Greenwood on the right, Jadon Sancho, and almost a very similar team. I think you could very well just push Bruno forward, and it looks almost the exact same team as yours. I do imagine in defence, Bruno will stand up with Cristiano Ronaldo and almost defend in a 4-4-2. But as you mentioned, I think in possession, Bruno will come a little bit deeper and try and get involved in the play a little bit. I just think that will naturally happen. You can very much, I'll just flick it back. You can very well see it, just switch Sancho and Rashford type thing. Just push Bruno forward and Bruno drops back in type thing. It does not change much. I just think in terms of the way you set up defensively. But I think Alex Porter point here saying Wolves is always a battle of pinning the wing-backs back. And they do sort of line up often with that 3-5-2 system. I just think Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, what are your thoughts on that? Because obviously we've gone the same back four here. And I'm just thinking, I think Ralf Rangnick going forward, if he is to choose, he's playing a cup final tomorrow, I think he's choosing Diogo Dalot over Aaron Wan-Bissaka. But I made the case last week, or whenever it was, that for the one-off game, I would have bring in Wan-Bissaka in against Newcastle for that threat of St. Maximum in the transition. I just think here at home to Wolves, I see the thinking of Diogo Dalot. But with the Adama Traore, we saw Wan-Bissaka play his best performance this season off the top of my head was against Wolves in terms of that one-on-one defending with Traore. So I'm just thinking, obviously we've both gone Diogo Dalot, but is there a case, could you see Wan-Bissaka keeping his spot?
No, I don't think so. He was poor against Burnley, and that's the thing is, I like Wan-Bissaka, I really do. I want him to do well, but he's so poor on the ball time. What's
the job against Wolves? What's the job against Wolves? Is it Diogo Dalot getting forward, or is it watching Adama Traore's pacing behind where you need a defender?
United will get on the ball more than not, and I think that's the thing. I think the only instance where you could argue Wan-Bissaka over Dalot is perhaps against a team where you're not going to retain at least half of the ball. Maybe against a Liverpool at Anfield, maybe that's Manchester City at the Etihad. But unless it's those sorts of instances where you're not going to have the ball, I think just Diogo gets it over Wan-Bissaka at the moment. He's struggling defensively and he's struggling with the ball as well. So I can't make an argument to bring him in.
Yeah, it's, I definitely don't disagree. It's just an interesting situation, but I do like it in the fact that there is competition there now. And Ahmad saying Matic is good against these lesser sides, need an upgraded version of him against the heavyweights, and I think that's why we're obviously all looking forward to the January transfer window. And Ralf Rangnick obviously is looking at a midfielder, and obviously every United fan. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Scott McTominay, but go and upgrade on him if you can. And obviously, you can upgrade on Scott McTominay because he isn't the greatest of footballers, and there are plenty of good footballers out there, but there is a balance. And George here saying Traore will be targeting short, and Maguire, I don't think he'll go near Dalot or Varane. It'll be interesting. I think he would like to target Diogo Dalot in terms of the pace, but it'll be interesting what side he does line up on. From what I've seen from Traore very often, he is more sort of right-sided than which would obviously force him on that Luke Shaw side rather than Diogo Dalot.
What is interesting about Diogo Dalot, if you're following all the reports that come out, he's one of the quickest at the club. I think he just gets caught flat-footed. And when you're turning back to goal, I think that's the thing. I think maybe once he gets going, he's fast. But you look at him, he fails the eye test, doesn't he, Diogo? He gets flat-footed.
When we're in Perth, met him a few times. He's actually a big guy. Like, he's a big, physical, powerful guy type thing. So he obviously does have a little bit of pace about him. But yeah, I think a lot of it is in terms of that turn-in. And yeah, it definitely sort of does play tricks on your eyes in terms of the timing. Look at that old Conor McGregor quote, precision beats timing. And so what was it? What was that quote? Precision beats power and timing beats speed. So I just think that's one of the things on Diogo Dalot. It does look, even Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw is arguably one of the quickest. He doesn't look at in terms of weight he's carrying on him type thing. But is there anything else on the Wolves preview before we start to wrap up that you sort of want to bring up? There's one more thing here. Ahmad saying, don't underestimate Wolves midfield. They bossed our midfield before. They might have more ball than us, which is a very strong possibility that could happen. Obviously, we've talked about the January transfer window, and I'm sure we'll do another 20 videos on it this month. Ruben Neves, Ralf Rangnick type player, who's always been sort of in and around United's discussion. Do you see a situation unfolding there this season or this January window?
Not sure. I think it's definitely possible. There's a deal to be done there if United want to do it. Because look, Wolves, I think that they've made no secret that the owners do want to sell the club. So yeah, I think it can be done. I don't know if he's what United need at the moment though. I think what he does with the ball, I'm very much a fan of. Defensively though, I'm not sure if he's exactly what United need. Is he what you'd call a six? I think he's more of an eight personally. And I think United are just desperate for a player who can just screen that back four. I think we do need an eight, by the way. I think that there will be a need, particularly with Paul Pogba likely to leave the club. There will be a need to get an eight in, but I think a six is more. And I'm sorry, that's a lazy thing. I think we just need someone who's more defensively inclined rather than someone who's going to progress the ball forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, if that's obviously the wrap up of the Wolves preview, we've just got one more topic to discuss. But if you are enjoying it, please do leave a like on the video. That would be great. And if you are new, if you could click subscribe, that would be great. But Larry, just before we wrap up, just a little bit, I don't know, it's a serious discussion, but also want a little bit of a laugh. It doesn't really tie into United, but obviously historically it does. Obviously, Ronaldo was the narrative. He was the problem. It was a bad sign, and he's going to come in. He's going to sort of cause rifts. He's going to cause this and that type thing. Romelu Lukaku came in for, I don't know, how much did he cost Romelu Lukaku?
£75 million.
£95 million, was it? So obviously
75.
75 million pound, was it? Who they get, or might have been Havertz, was 90 something million, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
But obviously a big money signing for Chelsea. He's come in, he's going to win Chelsea the title. Oh my God, Larry, those quotes by Romelu Lukaku. Now, Paul Pogba has pushed that envelope on a few occasions. He has sort of pushed that boundary a little bit. He has never gone to the extent that Romelu Lukaku did the other day. I'm shocked. And I think it should be front page news. I think it'll be swept under the carpet because it's not Man United. But I think if you look at those quotes by Romelu Lukaku in isolation, I'm shocked by them. I can't get my head around what he has done. And if I was sitting here and he was at Man United, I would be very confident in sitting here saying he shouldn't be playing for Man United again. So I'm assuming that's what I've seen from most level-headed Chelsea fans. Those quotes from Romelu Lukaku, he shouldn't play for Chelsea again.
I agree with you. It's a difficult one. I do think some of the comments have been taken out of context. He was in an interview, and
I don't think they have been taken out of context.
The interview was completed 3 weeks ago. I think that's something that has come out since. And he was saying that, Tuchel has changed the system and so forth. Like, he hasn't, I don't think he's disrespected Chelsea. I just think it's really poor to say you want to go to another club that you've just left, given how much Chelsea had paid. Sorry, let me correct my statement time. I thought you were asking me how much United paid for him. So United paid 75 million. But yeah, Chelsea paid, I think it was 100 million pounds, something in that region. Something ridiculous. But yeah, I think that's the issue with Lukaku. You can't have a club paying that much for you and then you're going on a limb and saying that you want to play somewhere before your legs are gone. It's quite poor considering he's 28 years of age. Like,
that's the thing. He's almost saying he wants to go back to Inter Milan this window. That's almost in terms of his prime. Where you can argue Romelu Lukaku has a prime type thing. Now, obviously, he's a very good striker, someone I don't rate too highly, but in terms of you do look at those quotes and what he means, and if he gets what he wants, that means he's leaving Chelsea in the next 6 months, really.
Awful. That's the thing. I thought it was quite poor. I'm sort of split on this one. Just not split in terms of I agree. If I'm a Chelsea fan, I don't want him playing again. Where I am split is, as a fan, we always say we want the natural player to come out there. We want to see on social media. We don't want to see it behind a media team. We want to come out and see refreshing statements. And from that perspective, I got to say it is refreshing. He's speaking his mind. He's telling you he's not happy. He doesn't like the situation in terms of the system changing. But then the other side is...
He can do that, not after kissing the badge last week.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's the problem. There's photos of him going around. He's kissed every badge he's played on. I hate to see what he's like with it in his personal relationships, Lukaku. But look, on a serious note, it's in poor taste. And I think he's put Chelsea in an awful spot.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to bring up these stats here before we wrap up, because obviously it's natural to compare Ronaldo and Lukaku. Obviously, big money signings. Now, obviously, Ronaldo transfer fee was actually quite a cheap signing type thing, but obviously we're investing a lot wages-wise, but probably not as much in terms of the whole package. Romelu Lukaku, I think he's around 100 million. So you just look at these stats here. This is just Premier League football. So appearances pretty much the same. And again, Ronaldo was 36 years old, so a big trait of Ronaldo, and it's part of the stats, is being available. Romelu Lukaku has picked up an injury or two, so that's tick number one in Cristiano Ronaldo. But look at the goals. Ronaldo has scored 8 goals. He's had a couple disallowed as well, and I think Romelu Lukaku has 2 in the Champions League, so pop those goals up to 7 goals for Lukaku. but Ronaldo has 6 in the Champions League. Ronaldo has pretty much single-handedly got us through the Champions League. So you can put Ronaldo up there to 14. I'm just seeing 3 assists for Ronaldo as well. I'm just thinking the narrative the last 2 weeks around Ronaldo being a bad signing and Lukaku coming in supposedly going to win Chelsea the Premier League. I'm just thinking, you look at those now, I know which striker I'd rather. Now, obviously, everyone wants Ronaldo over Lukaku, but there was the argument that Lukaku was a better signing than Ronaldo. And I'm just thinking, fast forward to now, not only the stats, okay, stats can be misleading. I understand that these look good for Ronaldo, but stats, they're only one part of the argument. But then you do look at the quotes from Lukaku, and that adds a tick in the box of Ronaldo being a far better signing.
Yeah, absolutely. No argument for me. You're choosing between the 2 players. You take Cristiano Ronaldo. I think Lukaku is a good goal scorer. I think that is an important factor here. I just think you need to play a very specific way to get the best out of him. With Ronaldo, I think you can play him in. You can play any way. You can play counter-attack. You can play a position where you will just want to give the ball to wide players and they cross it in, which is what Lukaku likes, the ball in front of him. I think you play Ronaldo in any system, and that's the thing. He's so fluid. He can flourish in any system. With Lukaku, you need to play a specific way to get the best out of him. And I think those statistics tell you that's why he's not happy in the system. He's not happy in the system because he's a limited footballer. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, no, hard to disagree. But obviously, the one thing we haven't mentioned in this preview, and we've obviously wrapped up the preview now in regards to Wolves, before we get a quick score prediction, before we finish it up, we haven't mentioned COVID. Obviously, there is always the chance that this could be called off at some stage. Fingers crossed it does not. But it is a weird situation, which we haven't discussed. Hopefully, we're not going to get to an end to it. But hopefully, it's a common discussion where we're not actually looking at it. Fingers crossed that is the case over the next month. Adam here saying Chelsea, in regards to Matt was saying, hopefully Chelsea beat Liverpool, and Adam saying Chelsea have a lot of players out. Liverpool, yeah, Klopp's got COVID as well. So obviously Arteta, Arsenal's best performance of the season, albeit in a loss, came without the manager. Obviously Arsenal performed very well against Manchester City yesterday, but City did what Manchester City do. But Wolves' prediction, Larry, obviously it has been a bogey team over the past. I think actually we've got a decent record against them at Old Trafford. I think we're quite comfortable there. It's Molineux, which we have struggled, but confident?
Confident. I will go with a 2-0 victory to United. I think, like I said, I think they'll have their moments. And with Harry Maguire's form at the moment, you can't be convinced. Luke Shaw, I don't think, is out of the woods yet either. And look, Diogo Dalot, I think he's doing well. But you just have there's this sick feeling with me with Diogo where he's just going to have one game where he comes against a really good winger and that winger's just going to expose him. I hope I'm wrong. Hope he stands up to that challenge, and he has so far. But I've got that feeling, and I hope that this isn't the game. I'm going to say 2-0 United, but I think that's more the fact that Wolves won't take their chances, whereas I feel United will have enough in us.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I'd go 1-0. I think Wolves, while they do have these attacking threats, I think they are one of those teams that are quite well organised. They're hard to break down. I think from memory, I don't have it in front of you, they have quite a strong defensive record. So I think they are a little bit hard to break down, which is why I'm not saying bring Juan Mata into the team, but that type of player, that's why I think Bruno does come back in terms of trying to create something, because they can be a little bit hard to come back into it. But Adam's saying here, United 2-1 Maguire factor. Does he mean Maguire 2 goals, or does he mean the 1 goal for Wolves being down to Harry Maguire?
I think it's the latter there.
Yeah, very likely. But look, if Rangnick keeps playing him, he's going to play him into form eventually. Just hopefully that form does come in before 2023. But Larry, always a pleasure. Just one more score prediction here from Matt. United 1-0 Wolves. Yeah, I'm thinking that as well. But always a pleasure. We'll be back. Obviously, the kickoff is at 4:30, unfortunately, Tuesday morning for us. We'll be back Tuesday night to discuss the win. Fingers crossed the win, but obviously the performance, the result, and the fallout. And I'm sure, make sure you are subscribed throughout the month of January, obviously, because we could be going live at any time with sort of Fabrizio Romano. Here we go. There'll be a new player, and a player we never heard of, but he'll hold up the Man United shirt, Larry, and we'll be convinced he's going to win us the Champions League. So it will be an exciting month. But until then, Larry, always a pleasure. Chat to you Tuesday.
Pleasure, mate. Happy New Year to everyone in the comments. And yeah, we'll see you Tuesday.